while I have talked about the various allegiances, types, or factions of dragons, for lack of better terms, there is another set that has a lot in common, but do not have any form of allegiance or kinship with each other, and these are usually referred to as the planar dragons. Essentially, dragons that mostly dwell within other planes of existence, not our own material one. Now today, I'm going to be starting with the Shadow Dragons, who are from the Shadowfell, surprisingly not, but I'm going to need to do some clarification on this. See, there's a bit of confusion, as there are technically two types of dragons that are both referred to as Shadow Dragons. There are the ones born within the Shadowfell naturally, and have their own natural powers innate to themselves, and there are also the ones dubbed as Shadow Dragons, who are actually other dragons who have been corrupted into Shadow Dragons. See, if any dragon, say a blue one for example, stays within the Shadowfell for too long, their body will naturally change and shift. In a way, they will be altered or mutated by the dark shadows of this magical realm that is a mockery of our own. And in fact, I would not be surprised if the natural-born Shadowfell dragons are in fact just the descendants of dragons that were corrupted eons ago. Which begs the interesting question, are they actually a different species? Well, it's rather hard to say in this regard. It must have happened long ago, and magic is almost certainly at play, so there must be different rules applying. And because of their vast array of differences in so many ways, I think we should talk about them as if they were a different creature altogether. So to start with some more obvious things, no two Shadow Dragons are going to look alike, not just because they spawned off of different types of dragons, but also because once a dragon becomes a Shadow Dragon, they are now able to fully interbreed, and are more likely to do so with other dragons, or that were once other dragons and are now Shadow Dragons, making even new native Shadow Dragons, who will be wholly unique, or maybe akin to a shadowy combination and hybrid of the two. Not to mention, these hybrids, or native ones, do not look alike in any way. Oh, and a thing I'd like to note, in case you were wondering, is how they actually got their name. See, they are not actually made of shadow, and are very much corporeal for most of the time, until they are within darkness, usually given by shadows. They sort of merge with the darkness around them, and become less and less physical the darker it is, to the point where in pitch darkness, non-magical weapons almost pass right through them. I say almost, you can still hit them with it, but it's not going to do the same effect you'd expect. And given that they naturally dwell within darkness, and are usually found in the Shadowfell, they are not going to be constantly worrying about their only major weakness, that being the light. There's just no need, it's not going to come up commonly. And I should get into their anatomy, as whatever the natural dragon used to be, it changes once they become a Shadow Dragon, to the point where even their organs rearrange, and this can affect everything. And the main effect is their breath weapon. See, whatever their breath looked like before, it stays the same, but it is no longer the same element. If they were a red, for example, it would still look like fire, or if they were blue, it would still look like lightning. But this is in just shape alone. It is now nothing more than a necrotic black shadow that takes the shape and nothing else of the old breath weapon. It is instead now a draining death attack that seeps the very life out of you. And I mean that in multiple ways. See, it does now do necrotic damage, but some, usually ones born within the Shadowfell, are able to sap the strength out of you, and make you tired and even exhausted. But a strange thing about their breath attack, unlike other dragons, is that they can actually hurt each other with it. See, they stay immune to whatever damage type they once had, but are now resistant to necrotic, not immune. Meaning, it can still hurt them, though nowhere near as much as it used to be able to, and it could kill them if given enough time and exposure to that type of damage. So, this means they are not immune to their own breath weapon, and that is actually something you can use against them, which I have done so, but I'll talk about that more when I get to the tale of how I slew one. Well, my party slew one. I want to get to more facts about them for now. It's going to be hard to talk about things like hordes, since they might all like the same stuff they used to before, or maybe their tastes have changed completely. Some might even grow to despise what they used to keep in their hoard, and throw it out entirely. And given the nature of the Shadowfell, some might not even bother to keep a hoard anymore. Actually, I should get into the nature of this realm a little more, as it's not only going to be where they dwell for the most part, but also most of them are going to lair here, if they lair at all, so it's going to be crucial to understanding them. So as I stated earlier, the Shadowfell is a mockery of our own world, but I did not mean that in just favourable words, I meant that in a literal sense. See, the Shadowfell is one of the two worlds that are a mirror to our own, the other being the Feywild. See, the entire world we live in has, in a sense, 3 copies. Every natural formation is exactly the same. Each mountain, valley, and even biome is the same in silhouette alone. You are not going to find any structures or effects we have had on the terrain, or the effects that those realms have had on their own terrain, which is probably why no one really notices that these are actually mirrors of our own worlds, as we've changed our terrain so much, it has become unrecognizable to the land before it, and also the realms would be responsible for a little bit of this change as well. But to talk about the realm again, in short, all it does is take from you your strength, your life, your emotions, even your personality. It drains everything about you, slowly, till you become nothing more than a husk in this shadowy, colourless land. And to make things worse, you will more likely reanimate as a walking corpse should you actually die here. I trust this helps you see why the dragons of this place might not care for their hordes anymore, and they've just lost everything about themselves. There is also no known reason why this land has a specific effect on dragons. While it does also corrupt anyone who spends a long time there, it's always consistent for dragons. There must be something about their powerful nature, or their grandiose being. Being one step below the divine itself might have something to do with it. It's quite hard to say why. Oh, and as another note, this change, or corruption, whichever you wish to see it, is a permanent one. There is no way to reverse it, bar a wish spell, to the point where some dragons might even view this as a sort of punishment. And I would not be surprised if, say, some metallic dragons of some kind commit a crime that deserves a fate worse than death. They would be banished to the Shadowfell to become a shadow dragon against their will. And I would not be too surprised if some shadow dragons wish to undo this fate, as becoming one saps the very soul out of you. And though they are immortal, unlike most dragons who are incredibly long-lived, they actually no longer possess their soul, and will fade upon death. No afterlife, no heaven or hell, just end upon death. But do not pity them. For the most part, after a while, the dragon you once knew fades entirely, and they become something else, something horridly evil, that revels in cruel acts and deeds, something wholly wicked to despise. And as most of them are even born there, or choose to become a shadow dragon, as it's a way to become a stronger thing with very little effort on your part, most of them do choose this fate. They choose to become a soulless husk of evil. Even the ones once good of heart, who could be considered paragons of virtue, will slowly become corrupted, foul, evil, and wicked. Though they may fight it at first, and keep their old personality for perhaps a few hundred years, once they become a shadow dragon, they will fade at once, and the dragon you once knew will no longer exist. The even sadder part is if they leave the Shadowfell after becoming a shadow dragon, it will still take their personality in the end. Once the transformation is complete, even if there's still a hint of them in there, they are essentially gone. It is inevitable. I had, long ago, once killed a young, once gold and now shadow dragon. My party was sent, sadly enough, by the gold dragon's father, who wanted us to kill him after he was kidnapped by the cruel black dragon Ashspawn, and turned into a shadow dragon against his will. See, the father went into the Shadowfell and rescued his son, who was sent there 20-odd years ago to be tortured within that cursed realm. And after he came out, he spent another 50 or so as his old self, though physically corrupted, personality intact. But he felt himself slipping every day, and eventually cast himself into isolation, deep within an abandoned dwarven hold, as he knew he was slipping. His father, hearing of this, didn't want him to suffer any longer. We hired a dwarven ranger to help us find the feral beast, but when we arrived, we did not find the feral beast we expected, but a smooth-talking fiend in the shape of a dragon. His very voice had changed, a shock to all, but worse still, he had found a way to make a deal with a demon, and the two were acting as mountain rider, making our fight even harder, and we lost said dwarven explorer who helped us in it. Both him and the demon were made of shadow given we were underground, so striking at them was an absolute nightmare, and given that we had no holy figure with us, it was a blasted infuriating fight, but we did manage to deal with them in the end by a rather bizarre manner. See, I have a very small and minor magical item, known as a drift globe, which is just a small ball, a crystal ball, that emits light when I want it to, but once per day it can emit a powerful daylight effect. And we knew that this would have given us enough time to weaken him for one good strike. So, I prepared the drift globe. We had a fighter with us at the time who pinned down the dragon, and we used it in combination with our halfling artificer, who, being the insane lady she was, loaded herself into a cannon and shot herself into the chest of the dragon after the one brief moment I gave her. She ended up inside of its stomach, and just a warning, the story gets a bit grosser from here, she crawled her way out of the stomach, ripping a hole into it, and found her way to its breath gland. She grabbed it and burst it in half. And this is actually how I learned that shadow dragons are not immune to their own breath, as it started to slowly wither away, decaying from the inside out after the emitting gas from within its own body. It was rather foul and illuminating at the same time. Sadly, the demon got away, and that came to bite us in the ass another day, but that is, unfortunately, a story for another day, I'm afraid. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It does really mean a lot to me. But, till next to me, fellow traveller, have a good day.